it's Liz Yuille from Old Stables Craft, UK independent Stampin' Up demonstrator. Thank you very much for joining me again today. Today I have this project for you. It is a cute little box. It's 3 inches square for the base and 2.5 inches deep, and it uses the galvanised paper, yes, galvanised metallic paper from the Country Lane suite, the Country Home stamp set, and the tin tile dynamic textured impressions embossing folder. And that's what I've used for the lid. I'm hoping you can, yeah, if I get it just right, you can see this beautiful embossing. And it makes it really easy to do this lid because basically it's predetermined how big it's going to be. So this is in Blackberry Bliss. I've used the pretty label punch with a 1 3/4 inch circle punch behind it, and then I've stamped here, I've stamped it in Mint Macaron 2nd generation and Blackberry Bliss for So Grateful for Someone Like You in My Life, because I thought it would be a nice little gift box. And then I've used the braided linen ribbon trim just to tie it all together, literally tie it all together. So let's get started. I've got a few little tricks and tips along the way. So first of all, our textured impression embossing folder. This is one of those really, really thick embossing folders. I should say you can find the suite on pages 42 and 43 of your autumn winter catalogue. If you don't have one, I do still have some. So if you're in the UK, hop over to my blog, which is linked immediately below, and you will find that there's a catalogue page, and you can request a catalogue there. So what I have got is a scrap of crushed curry, because I'm going to do a different coloured version. So I'm going to use crushed curry instead of the Blackberry Bliss circle. I've got a 6-inch square of the galvanised metallic paper. This is double-sided, so unlike most of the foils, unlike all of the foils, this is actually double-sided. It feels slightly different in a kind of slightly odd way. But anyway, that's 6 by 6, and then I've got Cajun Craze because I've just picked colours from the Country Lane suite, although I'm not using the designer series paper, and Cajun Craze is one of those, and I'll come back to exactly how big that is in a moment because it's an odd size. So 6 by 6 is the perfect size for your textured impressions embossing folder. You just need to get this lined up so it is square in your folder because you want it square. There's a little bit of wiggle room, not a huge amount of wiggle room. In fact, I want to come down a wee bit. So there is a bit of wiggle room, so do bear that in mind. But yeah, 6 by 6. Now, Big Shot and Textured Impressions embossing folders. I don't normally bring my Big Shot in for my videos, but on this occasion I will. So you want your standard Big Shot platform without the thin die adapter and just one cutting plate. This is a really tatty cutting plate, and I really should break out one of my new ones. And then you just sandwich your Textured Impressions dynamic embossing folder between your cutting plate and your platform. It will be a little stiff, but it shouldn't be too bad. And I'm sorry everything's shaking now. This is why I don't normally bring my Big Shot onto my desk when I'm filming, because everything shakes. Anywho, right, so that is that done. We don't need the Big Shot for anything else, so we can get rid of that. And if we open this up, there is our beautifully embossed metallic paper. Now, it's not perfectly square, but we've got wiggle room, so it's fine. So let's grab our Simply Scored, and you can see it's a 6-inch square. Now, these squares happen to be 1.5 inches. So let's score it at 1.5 inches. And I know we're scoring through lovely embossing, but it's fine. We can survive. But you do need to make sure that it's fairly well scored. Don't go mad. But in amongst all this embossing, you do need to be able to see where your score lines are. So there we go. Right, so that's that. And I'll pop that to one side. This Cajun Craze is not quite 8 inches square. I have taken a 1/16 of an inch off. So that is, there are no 1/16ths on this. This is an 1/8. I've taken half of that off. And I'm going to score at, let me find my cheat sheet, 2.5 inches. And I'm going to, as I did with the lid, I'm going to turn it for each score line. Particularly if I'm making a square box, I do like to turn my paper rather than just going 2.5, 5.5. But obviously, because this is 7 15/16 square, you need to turn it, because the reason for the 1/16 is so that you get this nice neat fit, rather than having to fuss about pulling it out or putting a shim in. It's much easier just to start with a slightly smaller piece of paper. Right, I'm going to make the lid first, basically because it's the trickier of the two. You need to very gently, just on the edge, fold and burnish your score lines. But do not go right in the middle, because you've just spent time putting your embossing in, so you kind of don't want to take it out. Also do it so that it's the side rather than the top, because then if you do push it out, to push out your embossing, it's going to be less obvious. Then, and you're going to do the same with the box, you cut up, trim out, so wedge and turn, and then do the same all the way around. You're kind of ending up with a Catherine wheel shape, so I tend to wedge in and then cut out, purely because then it's all going in the same direction and it's quicker for me, and therefore quicker for you, so you don't have to watch me doing it too slowly, because as you know, I don't edit, because editing takes time and I would rather be crafting. So I'm happy to show you my projects, but you get them in real time, so you know exactly how long they're going to take. And if I go wrong, then you find me either starting again or sorting it out. So there we go. It's going to be more obvious when I do the base, so let's do the base, because we are doing exactly the same thing with the base, although we can be a bit more brutal with our burnishing with the base because it's not embossed. But we're going to, I'm going to bring in my bigger scissors actually, purely for speed. I prefer my snips, but for speed I can do it in one cut, nearly in one cut. And again, we're going to wedge as we go. So it's been the most bizarre weather. Absolutely. I mean, I know we were warned we were going to get an Indian summer in the UK. Well, earlier this week it was 23, 24 degrees. Ooh, interesting piece of, that's from some of the black organdy ribbon, I think. So yes, 23, 24 degrees, madness. It's the middle of October, for crying out loud. Today, however, when I would like some half-decent light for filming, overcast. It was ever thus. So I'm hoping I've got the lighting roughly okay. Right, so we might as well make the base first. That's the shape we're looking for, so it's, as I say, a bit of a Catherine wheel. Now, I happened to buy Fast Fuse when it was on the clearance rack recently, so for the sake of speed, I will be using Fast Fuse for the base. I'm not going to use it for the lid, and I will explain why when we get there, but let's do the base first. So you could use tear and tape, you could use multi-purpose liquid adhesive. I would probably, if it wasn't for speed, I would probably use the liquid adhesive. It is, as you know, one of my favourite adhesives. So all we're going to do is go round and build our box. Now the first two sides are kind of fairly straightforward and you just seal them up. The second two, you do need to make sure you've got both of your flaps in the box before you do your last to the sides, because you're never going to get that in, otherwise it's too deep a box. Now I must apologise if you see a funny mark on my left thumb. It is not ink. I tried to cut, no I didn't try, I accidentally tried to cut the end off my thumb. I was making an apple pie. I wasn't sure if my knife was sharp or not. Well, I soon discovered it was. Anyway, so it's a lot better than it was, but it's not the prettiest thing in the world, and occasionally I go, ow, when I find it. Anyway, that is our basic box, or our box base, I should say. Right, tear and tape. Now, I've seen people who do it like this. No, they do it like this. Let's give it a go. I'm using tear and tape on this because... Oh, that is quite good. Because I don't want to push out any more of the embossing than I have to. I've already had to push a bit of it out because I've been burnishing my score lines, but I kind of don't want to push out any more, really. So tear and tape is your friend when you don't want to push too hard. Otherwise, liquid adhesive possibly. With the embossing, I think tear and tape is probably going to be your friend all round. Theoretically, it should end up with the embossing marrying up, but it won't. I mean, you know, we are only human, we are not machines, so it's unlikely that it will. So I think I'm just going to accept that it doesn't, and use tear and tape. So you do need to make sure that is properly down, and then you can peel it off. You can use your, don't need scissors anymore, so let's get rid of those. You can use your piercing tool, but I've got the take your pick because I love it, because you can use it for all sorts of things. It has got embossing tools that you can switch out. So, and if you saw the video I did, oh gosh, some months ago now, I have done a video on making a case for it, or a storage box for it, which is this, which you need to keep the plastic that it comes in, because basically you're building a box that goes round that. But it does mean you know where your piercing tool is, you know where all the bits are for it, so nothing's going to get lost, which, knowing me, is always a plan, because I can lose things when they're exactly in front of me. Right, so that's that. Do, however, particularly when you've got this exposed, remember to put the lid on, because that would be painful. Right, and in the same way, we're going to go round and we are going to build our lid. And there we go. Now you do need to kind of give it a bit of a push, but again, I wouldn't go too mad with it. And then if everything is right, fingers crossed. There we go, a nice snug little lid. So, somewhere I have, there we are, hidden behind a punch, the braided linen trim. I love this stuff. It is basically our linen thread that has been plaited or braided, whichever way you go. Not something I've ever needed to worry about, certainly as far as my hair is concerned, because my hair has never been that long. I did try when I was at school to grow my hair long enough to have braids and all that good stuff, but my hair just doesn't grow that long. It grows very fast, but not very long. So yeah. And yet I was at school with a girl who could sit on her hair even when it was plaited. So I remember when she had it cut off. I was at college with a girl who had really long hair as well, and they both had their hair cut short. And as I always wanted long hair, it was like, no, don't do it. Right, so the bit that's always really difficult to do on camera, a bow. So you've got a square, or two squares rather, that you kind of want your braided thread to run through. We can sort that out, you know, when it's all finished. Well, not finished, but when the bow's done. Ow. So at moments like that I suddenly find that I have cut myself. Right, so there is our bow. It looks almost like it's going to rain. I don't think rain was forecast, but there we go. Right, so there we are. So there's our lovely our lovely braid, and then just trim the ends so they're kind of roughly the same length. And then I've just taken them and frayed the ends a bit. They're going to fray, so we might as well just accept that they're going to fray and fray them. So that's that. Then we just need to do a wee bit of stamping. So I've got a scrap of Whisper White, and as I say, I used mint macaron and black brew bliss for my original. I'm going to use crushed curry and early espresso for this version. So I'm going to start with the crushed curry and just bring in a scrap of paper, and I've mounted up the stamp that I call the Bulrushes stamp. It fills quite nicely as a background. So let's ink that up and just check how many. Yeah, so we'll do one off and then second generation, and it's going to be a bit mottled, but that's part of its joy. So don't need the crushed curry anymore. So that's that one, and then I've already mounted up the same stamp, so they're so grateful for someone like you in my life. And I'm using early espresso for this because it's a nice dark colour. It's almost black, it's so dark, it's lovely. And then stamp that over the top, and that just gives you something in the background, because otherwise you end up with it just looking as if it's a bit lost. Bring in our pretty label punch, and it just fits, as you can see. And then the 1 3/4 inch label punch and some crushed curry. And don't need our scrap anymore. And might as well use liquid adhesive. Just going to add some liquid adhesive in the middle of that, and I like liquid adhesive for this because it does mean that you can make sure that it's where you want it. So that's that. And then I've got the edge bits of some dimensionals. You can use just ordinary bits of dimensional, but I happen to be on the edges, so I'm going to use them, and then just pop those either side of our linen thread. Take the backings off and pop our, there we go. So there's the one we've just made. Here's the original, and you can see, so let's pop it that way. Both really nice little boxes, and I love that you can make a lid with the tin tile textured impressions embossing folder. It's such a cute idea. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you need any of the supplies, there is a link to my online store immediately below, and then if you go over to my blog post, you'll find not only the list of supplies but also the dimensions. I'm not doing them in metric because this is very definite on its measurements, so sorry. If you would be interested in joining my team of sparkling sunflowers, then there's information about that both below and over on my blog post. There's also details about my Crafty Hangout on Facebook, which is just a community Facebook page. If you don't already subscribe to my YouTube channel, I'm hoping to get to 5,000 subscribers by the time I hit my birthday on the 1st of November. We've got about 75 to go, so if you don't already subscribe, that would be lovely. It would be a great birthday present for me if you did. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, and that's it for me. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks a lot for watching, and I hope to see you again very soon.